We appreciate you staying with us on the program. This morning, two conversations right in front of us, as I say, first is first. So we want to start talking about the constitution review that's ongoing, the circumstances that informed this review in the first place, where we are right now, and where we should be heading, given the trajectory right in front of us at this point in time. Of course, I talked earlier at the top of the program how the people have also said that rather than embark on this journey of, as it were, amending the constitution, or better still, evolving a new legal document altogether, why don't we revert to the 2014 Confer report to help save the day, given where we are today as a country, particularly in light of the level of insecurity we now grapple with in Nigeria. I've been joined by three gentlemen. I begin my introduction from my very immediate left, Reverend Odu Martins is on the program, public affairs analyst. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And next to him is someone who has been referred to as the only British guest amongst all three of them this morning, Christopher Odekere. We appreciate you coming on the program.
Good morning, thank you.
Good to see you as always. And Honorable Ayameko Ekepolo is also a public commentator, is joining us for these conversations. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. I want to begin with you because you have shown visibility as far as this conversation about the constitution review is concerned. You were in Asaba a couple of days back. Of course, you should have been on the program here last Thursday, if not for that engagement. You want to quickly walk us through what this process has been like? Because just a while ago, off camera, you talked about active participation in the process without, beyond just criticizing and being active on social media. What has been your experience firsthand?
Yeah, first of all, we need to appreciate that constitution, deserve to be touched, reviewed, reworked from time to time, because there's actually no perfect constitution. And so, in the pursuit of an Eldorado, constitution must be constantly reviewed, looked at. Now, the Nigerian constitution, by all knowledge, has been reviewed or amended, thrice. 1999 constitution was amended. The United States constitution, has been amended 27th time. And so there's really no end in amendment of the constitution. So currently, the Nigerian National Assembly have resolved to see to a review of the constitution, and certain zonal centers were opened as far back as September last year, when the constitutional review, debates came up. Groups and organizations were invited to send in their memorandum, and our own organization, the Benin National Congress, made a bold step in putting out a memorandum, and that memorandum ought to be presented in a physical meeting via the Asaba Center for Edo, Delta, and Bayelsa states. And so last week Wednesday, we were there, and it was chaired by James Manager. And so the whole idea was to physically engage and have the opportunity, 10 minutes, 7 minutes, 5 minutes, we are allocated, depending on the volume of your presentation, to speak to your memorandum in the open glare. Senators from Edo State were there, Senator Martin Rovide, distinguished Senator Ali Mekena, and other senators from other parts. Even Sereke Dixon from Bayelsa was on the panel because they were in the committee for the one for Asaba. And so we did our presentation. So the point is, if we keep criticizing without very dutiful, meaningful, and robust engagements, with stakeholders and with those piloting the affairs of the country, we just turn out to be unnecessarily cynical. There must be deliberate engagement, and you find, unfortunately, that most of the people that criticize hardly have time or sacrifice time for this type of exercises. That's why, for instance, in Nigeria, most of our professors, with all due respect, or academicians, are notorious for not attending, to voting on the day of election.
Somebody said they are now lethargic.
Their efforts
over time have not paid off.
They just tell you that don't forget about that. They're doing nothing will happen there. But you forget that once a professor is in a voting center and introduces himself to an AO or an EO as it's called, electoral officer, that I'm Professor so and so, the name and the introduction have a way, his figure, have a way of instilling some caution and due diligence in the presiding officer for that election, for that voting center. And so we must stay away from this criticizing and not participating tendency. And so this is why I am saying that Nigerians must pay very, very critical attention to this constitutional review exercises, so that these people that are in charge of the affairs of this country will not take undue advantage, of our indisposition.
Great. So I'll let you hold your breath for a minute. Christopher, let me talk to you quickly. We've seen efforts at amending the Constitution before now. Quite a number of instances where we had attempted to amend our Constitution. Some people say this is a different instance altogether, given the peculiarity that Nigeria is dealing with at this point in its history. And then you have those who also say, well, why do we waste resources trying to amend our Constitution when we can just easily pick up the confab from 2014, the report of that confab from 2014 that brought delegates from across the country, from across all spheres of influence, to come have a discourse on where this country should be heading. What have been your sentiments looking at all of these developments unfold?
All right, effort is good, but results are always better. There have been efforts, as you have said, and this also is an effort. I will never be in a position to criticize an effort. And that's why I align with Mr. Edopolo that as far as the principle of development is concerned, inclusivity and participation is the key. People can include themselves and participate in various levels.
Right.
Part of the thing we are doing here is participation, rather than just sit down and criticize it, because we have to have a constitution. We have to move the nation forward. Now, the different views is how do we do this? And that's why you gave us one school of thought, who thought that rather than beginning to amend this constitution, why not bring existing documents? The UWIS Commission report is there. The confab of 2019 that you mentioned is there. And then even El-Rufai's committee report from the APC.
That essentially focused on restructuring.
National issues. And the issues are part of the things we are also dealing with now in this constitutional amendment. Then there are those who are romanticizing with the 1963 Constitution of Regionalism. And the argument is that that is the only constitution that you can call the Nigerian People's Constitution. That the 1999 Constitution we are trying to now amend, ab initio, is faulty. It doesn't exist because it is not our constitution. It was a constitution drafted by a hegemonic group, and for the essence of convenience. The present speaker describes it as a horrid, a horrid compromise. A horrid compromise. That's what Femi described it as. Now, ab initio, that constitution was drafted by the military and handed over to us. We have seen the operationalization of that constitution. The effects of that operationalization has left Nigeria more divided, battered, and shattered. And that is why effort is being put now to think out a constitution. I have not taken any position what should be done, because many times it is not the process, it is the transparency and integrity of the individuals involved in a particular process. The National Assembly are legitimately endowed by law to amend the constitution.
Of course.
There's no doubt about that. But there are political, what we call externalities, that are involved in this legal process and in this legislative process. The externalities of politics, the externalities of ethnicism, of hegemony, of, and then there are other externalities of agitations by groups, so all of these are affecting it. Now the questions to ask is, what is the level of our integrity and confidence in the integrity of these present actors? Now, he has just spoken, putting effort from all the unit states. At the top of this country's federalism, or federal republic, or federation, is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Have we seen demonstrable passion or even an attempt at showing interest at what is going on now? What is going on now has to do with the foundation, the definition. What's a constitution? It is the summation of the worldview of a community of people and an expression of their aspiration, where they want to go. And sitting on top of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is the president and the presidency, which have become the metaphor for presidents. Now, have we seen the presidency's, interests in what is going on at all? And then, what is our brothers from the north? Those are dealing with externalities now. What's their position? Because this thing is not going to go through by fiat. We are still going to follow the constitutional requirement for amendment.
Right.
Which means that after we have done all this collectivity of opinions and zonal representations, we take it to the National Assembly, who will now do their own votings, and then it now goes to the states. Now, fears are this. One, I have not seen anything that have gone to the states that came back and we ever took a national decision on it in Nigeria. If you have an example, you let me know.
The local government issue, for example.
Yes, local government issue, autonomy for
House of
Assembly. It has never. Are you following me now? Again, experts have raised questions that how do you convert a unitary constitution into a federal constitution? For instance, after Babalola, a legal luminary, the foremost constitutional lawyer in Nigeria, has told us that how do you say there is no provision? You cannot amend the powers of the president in terms of the revenue, and resource control and resource.
Which is a key component in this conversation.
Now, it's that you also cannot amend the president's power of the judiciary. The president appoints the federal judges.
Right.
I mean, the chief justice of the federation, and then the attorney general of the federation and minister of justice. These are key components. So these are, I'm just trying to bring out the different, so these are the issues around this amendment. But as for efforts and a direction, we should be doing something, and we should be seen to be doing something. Then we are only now to watch that what is being done is done with integrity. What is being done is done with purpose. Because as you said, these are different circumstances. We have had the situation of bandit attacks. Nigeria right now is in the threat. It's in an existential threat. It's having an existential threat, and it is affecting all the fabrics. So we would expect that people will be more careful now to say, okay, look, if we don't do this and get it right this time, what is the alternative?
Great. Yes. I'm going to come back to you two gentlemen in a bit. But Reverend Martins, let's talk about the fears that most Nigerians have. Some persons have said, now that we're making another huge investment in the name of amending the Constitution, how do we ensure that doesn't become a jamboree? How do we ensure that doesn't become what somebody on Saturday called a cottage industry, so we don't go back to where we're coming from?
Thank you very much. Let me first of all thank Ayemekwe Dopolo, aka the village man, who lives in the city anyway, for representing, indeed, yes, and then the aggregate of our thinking. Incidentally, I differ with him when he talks about critics. There are great minds all over the world who don't participate, all over the world. All of them Socrates. We didn't quite know them too. Well, they didn't participate more. But the ideas that they churn out are the ideas that the likes of, or what they think, their philosophies. Some of America's greatest philosophers were not really in the forefront. But their ideas, what Patrick Henry, it was their ideas that people picked up. Because some people, great leaders, go to sit down with such people and say, okay, let me pick your brain in terms of XYZ things. For instance, there's no stopping a president, for instance, from going to sit down with Wole Soyinka. So let me pick your brain in regards to XYZ. It's all over the world.
It's a itinerary not to follow.
All over the world, great thinkers are hermits. All over the world, they are not extroverted. They don't participate a lot. They just want to be indoor, generate their ideas, and then throw it to the public for the public to do whatever they want, with it. So to that extent, not every professor is going to be out there. Some of the ideas that he's espousing today, and his grandiloquence, for instance, I'm sure were bought from some of the professors that taught him as well. So you can imagine if all the professors now leave their classroom and go to Asaba in the name of participation. You understand? They won't have those, because it is in their thinking, in their corner, that they generate those ideas that they say, okay, you know what, this is the philosophy of whatever it is, all their isms and isms. I just thought to put that in perspective. However, you pick certain fundamentals from my mind. You see, in this country, Nigeria is very funny. If a governor, for instance, wants to buy a house in Dubai, he sits down. All of a sudden, your cost is come, which road they never do? Never do exercise and say, okay, you know what, let's go and do that road. He is not really interested in doing that road. He's interested in padding that contract so that he can get something from that contract to go and buy his house in Dubai. In this country, we are more reactionary. What is generating all of this constitutional review, for instance, are the things that are the different agitations, the levels of insecurity. And I dare say that the levels of insecurity that has gotten to the doorstep of the legislators. If the levels of insecurity were with the hoi polloi, the bobtails and ragtags of society, they probably would not bother. But I saw Smart Adeyemi, and I give him the kudos for being so emotional. But the reason they're emotional is because Shiroro in Nigeria State is a few distances away from Abuja. And Abuja that used to be a safe haven today is no longer safe for anybody. So because the chicken has come home to roost, we are reactionary. We suddenly remember that, hey, we need to review this constitution so that everybody can be happy. Not because we have, genuine people.
So you're more concerned about motive?
Motive. And then you can, like you said, you can imagine the budget. If you look at the budget that was budgeted for this activity, you'll find out that for some people it's a cottage, industry. But I agree with the fact that there's an effort that is being made at having the ground norm, of having how a people will live together. However, sir, the question we want to ask ourselves is that, have these people agreed to live together? I remember what Dolly Parton said about coat of many colors. He said, no, it was patches, different patches that they put together to form the coat of many colors. All these different patches, did the northern part of Nigeria agree to live together with the southern part of Nigeria? Because in President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan's national confab, one of the things that he said that I found the fault in was that Nigeria's indivisibility was not negotiable. And I thought otherwise. I thought that the starting point of the discussion is that are we ready to live together? Because if husband and wife don't want to live together, there's nothing that the best counselors cannot bring them together, because marriage is consensus between two consenting adults. If two of them don't want to live together, there's nothing that you can do, about it. So when you now look at the operational, document that we're working with, like he said, it begins with the fact that we, the people of Nigeria, the American Constitution begins with the preamble. We hold this truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
Right.
And it is demonstrated in every paragraph, every word of that Constitution. The rich is equal to the poor. Everybody has equal access to certain fundamental.
Yeah.
Right of movement, right to acquire property. So when we began the Constitution with that preamble, we, the people of Nigeria, having decided to live together in harmony, hereby enact for ourselves. The question is, when did we, the people, sit down? And then if you now look at the Constitution, you now look at the Constitution that is badly skewed to favor a part in this country. Because all Nigerian Constitution talks about is how to divide. It doesn't talk about how to generate. There are 774 local governments. 2/3 of them are in the north.
Right.
This Constitution, for instance, recognizes 7 states for Northwest and recognizes 5 states for Northeast. They are even proposing now that Southern Kaduna should be separated. Southeast has 5 states.
Yes. As against
Northwest has 7 states. So if you now go to what he talked about, where you must now talk about the political processes, it means that no matter the senators in the South and the Southwest put together, the Southwest and Southeast will not match the vote of the senators in the Northwest only. So you see that when you take it in that direction, you find out that at the end of the day, we'll still be towing the lines of how skewed the Constitution is.
Do we have the courage to have this kind of conversation?
Fundamentally is the fact that a lot of times what we do is that we pick the loudest things that the Nigerians are talking about, because we want to be able to pacify people, and then we throw it, and then there's an amendment. I appreciate the fact that an effort, but usually what we do is that we cut off the nose to spite the face. We don't do real surgical. We're not bringing out every paragraph in the Constitution. When you go to, I wasn't there, but the last one they did, I was in Calabar. You find out that the matters that are subject for discussion there's already a template. I don't know if there was a template for this one. Usually they will say there's a template. We're discussing this, we're discussing this, we're discussing this, we're discussing this, we're discussing this.
And that's limiting.
Yes, so you go with that template. I'm happy that there's no any template here. Let's hope that the postulations and environments of the Benin National Congress, when it gets to the National Assembly, will not be watered down. Let's hope that the postulations, because if the discussions were going to be left at the level of Asaba, and what is and the decision was taken to Asaba, this is our decision at this level. But all of those decisions will still be taken to many of our senators that are subject to the whims and caprices of their governors. So eventually, what you are going to have is that the popular opinions of people are still going to be the opinions of the elite, sponsored by those in office who have the powers to manipulate both the social media and the traditional media.
Let me come back to Edukolo again now. I mean, Olumartin's just dragged you back into the seconds. All right, let's talk about how that one of the very core issues here, as far as this amendment is concerned, is that people are now saying, look, let's negotiate as it were, the unity of Nigeria. I mean, whether we want to stay together or not, that's the first. The second, the terms that should guide us staying together going forward. And in the middle of that, you now have these vehement tendencies, I mean, there's secessionist tendencies, like we've never seen perhaps before in the history of this country. In what ways do you see, I mean, ultimately, all of these initiatives around amendment of the Constitution addressing all these issues? Some persons have said, look, we're not staying in this country anymore, we're done and dusted, we're moving. And then you say, we can't negotiate that. We've got to stay here together. As they say in Pidgin Palace, we die here, for want of better words. Are we ready to have this conversation and be open-minded about it?
From what I've seen like very articulate co-discussants, articulated a while ago. Comrade Reverend Martins, not Bishop now, that Nigerians' participation is something that is worthwhile. Christopher also shared that view, that we should appreciate participation. But I want to say that going forward, the tension, the secessionist agitation, the existential threats that is beclouding Nigerian geographical space is something that has made the review of the Constitution inevitable, worthwhile, and something that we should all buy into. For instance, when I talked about there was no designed or defined goalposts in the presentation of the National Review in Asaba. Right. For instance, somebody stood up there. I've mentioned senators who were on the high table. These are names, and these are people that are there, that were there. Somebody stood up there and said that the organization is of the view that we should scrap the current National Assembly and replace it with a parliamentary system. It was given his time, and when it was done, the senators, whether it was from their hearts or not, also gave the applause, just like the man received, from the people. You understand? So that is it. There were no limits. The views canvassed by the Benin National Congress, for instance, have to do with negotiating the unity of this country.
So we're just making a point a while ago, and we had I.M. Edukolo, who was passionately appealing for more robust participation in this process of amending our constitution. I'm going to get back to you in a bit, but you mentioned something about the intentions of the governors themselves, that they have their intentions,
like I said,
as expected. Yes.
Yeah, in the Asaba conference, for example, I said some of the governors harmonized positions when they were being read by the attorney generals of their state or their representatives. The people from the audience, thundered, total rejection and disapproval, saying no, this is not what we said. So that shows that even in a state, you can find some level of antagonisms and class struggle. You can find a lack of harmonization, much more of a control-of-third state. So you're going to find some of these things. And like I said a while ago before the inch, I also noted that the state of California and Texas in the last election, for instance, especially the state of Texas, threatened to secede out of the United States. And so secession is natural. And that makes negotiation and renegotiations inevitable in any community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to talk to you, Chris, about the governors and their intentions. Governor Lua Rotimi Akeredolu, the governor of Ondo State, has said that we should forget about all of these National Assembly being split into Senate and House of Representatives, that we should scrap Senate altogether, all right, make it a unicameral legislature. All right, that's a sitting governor talking. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, while some people are saying, look, the unity of this country is not negotiable, people have got to stay together, and so on and so forth, some very frontline constitutional lawyers have come to say that, look, Nigerians should understand that the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution as amended as we know it, does not make a provision, all right, for us to have that kind of conversation where we now start talking about whether to federate or not to federate, or whether to have a, as it's called, a referendum. Because some persons have said, can't we just have a referendum, allow those who want to go their way, those who want to stay should stay, and so on and so forth. They say that our Constitution does not have such an allowance. So how do we make sense of all of this?
It's a merry-go-round, because whereas that in one breath, we are saying we do not recognize the Constitution because it's not on our Constitution. In the same breath, many times, we are discussing what we say is not our Constitution. And that's why you are having all of these views.
Should we stop making reference to the Constitution?
Because you have to agree, ab initio, whether it is not our Constitution.
And disregard whatever I said?
Yes. If we agree that it's not our Constitution, then a national dialogue or a national constitutional conference is the only way to go. Because then we are now about to make a constitution for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But if we agree that we have had this working document since 1999 up until date, and it has worked us to this point, but we are now beginning to see that the fabrics are being pulled apart because the document was not built to be sustainable, then I think that we should do something about it. And that's why I said I agreed with participation about it.
Right.
Now, if we are going to have to do something about it, we have to do something, not everything. We cannot attend to every individual's own interests or every individual's own opinion. He just gave you an example. That even within states, within individual states, you have divergent views. Therefore, if you have a situation like that, you have only one way to go. You walk a process to the end and see how it comes out before you not take another decision from there. There is no way you can be dealing with issues of national conference, dealing with the issues of secession, dealing with the issues and taking all these views at the same time. So you have a framework which you call the Constitution.
Right.
And then you say, okay, what are these issues? These issues are externalities. What are these issues and how do they bear on this particular Constitution? I'm very sure, this is what I heard him saying to the Southeast people. He said, we cannot afford to pull out of Nigeria because we need Nigeria as much as Nigeria needs us. And the reason why we cannot pull out of Nigeria is because we have our people spread across the entire country and they have their investments and all of that. And so what we need to do is to sit down and negotiate together that what we want, what we've been agitating for, is for justice and equity. Justice and equity is at the core of every constitution. So if you carry the process through and you deal with questions of federalism, for instance, devolution of power, so federating states, and you deal with questions of state policing, for instance, and you deal with question of the Land Use Act, for instance, and you deal with question of what you call minority rights, for instance, and the question of resource allocation, for instance, I will tell you that 90% of our problems would have been solved.
Okay, so I'm going to bring Olu Martins in now, just for a minute. So to tell us about what we need to do to address all of these issues. He just highlighted 5 of them, for example. The core of it is the resource control issue. The Niger Delta has been called the goose that lays the golden egg, and so on and so forth. But the irony of it all is the Niger Delta has seen little or no development over time. The NDDC has been dragged severally, even at the National Assembly level, to come account for all the allocations that have been made in the past 2 decades thereabouts, all right, to ensure that the Niger Delta sees that level of development that it sure deserves. How do we ensure that whatever constitution we ultimately would have addresses these fundamentals? Because until these fundamentals are addressed, it's obvious that Nigeria is not going to record much of success in any area.
You know, it's like having a foundation for a bungalow, and then you go and put a 3-story building on it. That's catastrophe. In other words, the Bible says the foundation be destroyed. What can the righteous do? So it means that there's a fundamental, this document, time would fail me to go into history, because the colonial master deliberately handed over political power to the North and designed them to be so. So when the military emerged, the military also skewed to the North, gave the North so much laxity. Because in this country, we talk about how to share money. Whether the camera is by camera, camera, whether they take crowd, they take crowd. If in this country we're talking about how to generate, and what a governor is paid is generated from what the money the state makes, it will not matter whether it's unicameral or bicameral legislature. But why is it like that? It is because we go to the National Assembly to share a supposed national cake. So if Kano, for instance, that was Kano, had 44 local governments, when Lagos State had 20 local governments, Jigawa is carved out of Kano. Jigawa has 20 local governments. Kano still has 44 local governments with a population still higher than Lagos, supposedly, when they both had the same population, when Lagos had not been divided. You come to what he has talked about, equity and justice. Because whether we like it or not, society will emerge by itself. So if we don't allow society, if we don't design society from the top, society will emerge bottom up, whether we like it or not. It's called evolution of man. Man will find his way of doing his own things. And then I'm a little bit worried about the presidency. I don't think that the body language of the presidency matters or not. Because you can override the presidential veto. When there is a movement, there's an entropy of ideas. Whether the president aligns to it does not matter. You don't forget that in this country, a president was overwhelmed by what was happening in the country. He himself had to confess to say, I have Boko Haram people in my cabinet. The government went ahead of him. And even though he was seated there, things were happening beyond his control. That's how, when the government loses legitimacy, it loses popular support. So we must look at, because when you have a heterogeneous community, as the Benin National Congress somewhere, the Igbo somewhere, the Fulani somewhere, the Hausa somewhere, it's not different from what's happening in America. What does America have? America has federalism. In this country, we like what they call tautology. It is in this country you have now. It is in this country you have quick.
Small.
Yes, small. So we now say true federalism. As if there's anything like a fake federal. But for the want of words, if we have a federal document, Edo State can develop at its pace. Edo State can control its resources. Edo State can have its own jam, requirements to enter. I don't know why Uniben should have its cut-off mark set by a national body. So to read medicine in Uniben, you need 250, 270. To read medicine in Hoffman Danford University in Sokoto, you need 70. Then you now read medicine there.
Do you know anybody who get admission into that school to read medicine?
There are many. There are many.
At score 70.
There are many. Some of them even bring awaiting results. In Zamfara, the last WAEC, SSC, how many people enrolled in Zamfara? 20. 20 people enrolled in Zamfara. When you have some states where one center alone had 3,000 people, Zamfara only 20. So those kind of people who don't want to make progress, so to speak, intellectually forward, and then you mix them and force them in a mix with a very cerebral Ekiti state where a family has 7 professors. So you can imagine what family meeting will be like. When you now mix these people up, what the kind of discussions will go on, in their mind? This is the kind of injustices we're talking about. If Zamfara, for instance, has his own medical school, his own law school, if you want to practice law in Zamfara, you must pass Zamfara Law School. The way you have in the U.S. The way you have in the U.S.
So the bar is state-specific.
It's state-specific. Medicine, too. So if you use 70 to go and read medicine, and somebody did 270 to read medicine, if I want to take injection in my bum, I know who to open it to. Because my life is at risk with the guy who lowered standard to read medicine, with the guy who had the best of standard. Unfortunately, sir, in this country, we have the best of people the worst of people presiding over the best of people, like he said. You now bring this same set of people. They man every sensitive position across the Nigerian system, where you and I burn the midnight candle. And then we have no father, we have no leverage, we have no opportunity. We burn the midnight, we read. When we come out, we will go and apply to somebody who merely because he comes from an ethnic place should pretend over my own superior ideas. And then you ask me to remain in that system. Why are people agitating all over the world? Once the system is weak, where do we find enclave? We find enclave in the fact that I'm a Benin man. Once the system is weak, where do you find enclave? You find enclave in the fact that I'm an Ijebu man. Once the center is weak, where do you find enclave? It's just like when you have a weak father, what happens? People will go and hide on. Mommy is the one who sent me. So you have young girls who are going to nightclub. Why? Because they will hide under their father. They will hide under. If they bring money in, they might hide under an irresponsible elder brother. It is like that. But if you have a father that sits up, he gathers everybody and gives them equal treatment. And everybody must answer to the father. So when you have a weak nation, a leadership at the north, that even demonstrate overtly that he favors the advancement of a particular ethnic group, what do we do? All of us, it will be to your tent, to Israel. All of us will go and find shelter in our different ethnic groups. That's why you have all of these agitations. But if you can mine the gold in Zamfara, I don't even agree to 13% derivation. I agree with the fact that the state should manage their resources and send 13% to the center. It's not the center that should send 13% to them. So when you have a behemoth a presidency that is so behemoth, that is so powerful, to pretend overstate and treat them like pariah states, clearly is that you would have states that have enjoyed the benefits at the national more than states that have.
All right.
No matter, it must naturally lead to some of the agitations that we have.
Thank you so much, Reverend Olu Martins. Just to help make sense of all of these issues, especially as the around the efforts being made at amending our constitution at this point in our history in Nigeria. But let's turn to our second discussion this morning, which some persons have also said is directly in correlation with the issue of amendments of the constitution. That's our second discussion. Quickly, I want to begin with you, Edupolo. The issue of insecurity in this country as it stands right now. The president too has taken some hits. Maybe we should say the presidency, to use the word of Ojekere. The presidency has taken some hits too, given the series of tweets that the president released on Twitter. Of course, the Nigeria Twitter, as they call it, has now come out to say, look, that tweet was extreme by every standard. In fact, Twitter officially has taken down the tweets as we speak right now. But some persons say that there was also a video of Nnamdi Kanu, the controversial leader of the proscribed IPOB, also giving instructions, directives to certain quote-unquote army.
Which was not taken down.
Which was not taken down. So people now say that was some sort of imbalance. In fact, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, the Minister of Information and Culture, has said that the mission that Twitter is in Nigeria to accomplish is suspect. So how do we balance all of this?
You see, when we talk about equity and disequity, is replete in human organizations, states, multinational organizations, international organizations, everywhere. And I wasn't surprised with the attitude, the rebuke that somebody like Donald Trump, posed to, some of the big techs. They call them the big techs in the United States. The big medias, call them the big techs, like Twitter and all of that, because they have interests. They are manned by human beings.
Right.
These human beings own them, and so these interests will definitely be seen if you consciously understudy their activities, and their motives will be unraveled. And so I strongly support the views canvassed by the Nigerian Ministry of Information to the extent that Twitter's action is suspect if we are using what you have even just said now, that a video posted by Nnamdi Kanu wasn't taken down. Okay? But a response to such a video was seen to be against the rules of engagement of Twitter and taken down. And so if they could ban Donald Trump from Twitter, I don't see it difficult for them to ban the president.
Okay, I think the good thing is that President Buhari, as it stands right now, not being banned on Twitter, even though his tweets have been taken down. But I want Ojekere to react to the fact that the reason for that ban, for that takedown of the president's tweet was how that he talked about shocking, for example, some elements who are, according to him, bent on destroying this country, who have now become a threat to the national unity of Nigeria as it stands today. is it a problem of context we're dealing with regarding the president's remark, or is it just us not being dispassionate about our assessment of what the president said?
It is part of our inherent feelings as black men not to be dispassionate when we are dealing with issues. It is also part of our national feelings to live in sentiments. When you are dealing with civilized society, they do studies of issues, developments and events over time. And then they come up with a national position. And they can use national instruments that are non-state actors to achieve that in the interests of the national security and the national welfare and peace of the world. So even if that is what Twitter is being used to do by the American society, I am standing on television today say, I support it. And I'll give you my reasons. You have had Boko Haram since 2009. It has festered through 2 administrations. And then, as it entered into this administration, Boko Haram now developed wings, so to speak. We started talking of ISWAP, and we started talking of ISIS, and then now we now start talking of unknown and anonymous bandits ravaging this country. And you have had what calls itself a government. And international institutions and countries, it's on record, have extended expertise, even for free, to help you deal with this problem. You have toned it down for whatever reasons. Meanwhile, going on in your country is pogrom, ethnic cleansing, and devastation, because you have state power, and you are using that state power against sections of your country, and you expect the world to close its eyes to that. If Nigeria breaks up, if Nigeria scatters, let us use that language, because we are not going to divide in this country. We are going to go into smithereens. We will scatter. You will even have groups. If we don't take charge and pick the reins and control it, to have either an informed discourse division or, results resolution, we are going to scatter. If it happens, we are going to be a problem to the world. We are 200 million people. We are going to be a problem to all countries in the world. Fugitives from our countries are going to be problems to the world. So the world is not going to fold its arms. The world is not also going to pretend with you when you are pretending that you are doing something about it and you are on top of the situation and you are not on top of the situation. So the president of the country has not shown responsibility and has not shown any form of being interested in taking care and solving this problem the way a president should do, up until he's now talking of destroying his own citizens. And he's saying it to the world that he would use his state powers, as it were, to shock and destroy a particular section.
But he didn't say we'll destroy them. He says
you don't have to
we'll
say
shock
destroy.
them.
If you say
but how do we validate your inference from what he said
Exactly.
when he used the word shock?
When you use an amorphous word, when you say whether we are dealing with the question of context,
Yes.
when you use an amorphous word, then it is subject to semantic
But the
interpretation.
president gave a piece of advice when he says, look, these persons, as young as they are, have no idea what happened in the 30 months that this country fought a civil war.
Which means you now have an identity of those who will shock. If you're saying these persons.
He said these young people.
Yeah, it's young people. Is it coming to Edo to shock us? Are we just going to sit down and we get the shock of the president? He has an identity. When you use language, he said this person, these young people. Oh, well, that means he's referring to entire Nigerian young people. Why does he want to destroy the entire Nigerian young people? What does he want to shock us with? He has moved from lazy youth to shocking youths. You see, the world cannot pretend with you. We are pretending, and we expect that people who are intelligent, who are reasonable, are critical, and serious about nation building should be pretending. So when you use an amorphous word, and you are talking as a president, and you are talking in the context of using power, and you are using the word shock, you subject it to semantic interpretations. And the only thing I can subject it to, because what will shock me, if you are going to invite me for dialogue, it won't be a shock. If you are going to come up with a Marshall Plan of how to deal with the problem that is dealing with me as a youth in the country, it won't be a shock. What will shock me will be sinister. So, and that is how it was interpreted by Twitter. And I stand with that interpretation. Because he used English language, he didn't use Hausa. So the English language, understand, within context. Language is spoken in context or situation.
Right.
And so it derives its meaning from the context. And the derivable meaning of shock here will be something that is sinister. And so they say, no, as a president, you cannot be shocking your citizens with whatever you are going to shock them with. You should be able to explain to your citizens, elucidate to your citizens reasonable roadmap, martial arts plans of how you intend to deal with the state of insecurity and agitations in Nigeria. That hasn't been done. So for Lai Mohammed to make that, now that statement from Lai Mohammed was also irresponsible because it is too early to conclude if I understand the principles of, critical thinking and dialectics, to say just because a statement was put down and another statement was not put down, the intention of that organization is suspect. It's irresponsible. Because he has no evidence.
I don't think that's right.
Yes,
if you say suspect, if you say suspect, you haven't criminalized.
It's just saying you have to tread carefully.
Yes,
caution.
Exactly.
He said the intention and mission of Twitter in Nigeria is suspect.
That's still open-ended.
It's open. It's
not criminalized. And once it is open-ended, it is also subject to interpretation.
Okay.
This is what I want you to understand. That you cannot tell a man the receptibility of his senses to the language.
You can't determine that.
Yes, you can't determine that. So when you use language, I have the liberty to understand it in my own thought process. And in my thought process, I thought that before a minister would use the word suspect, for a multinational coming to invest in your country, you would have given us a huge load of evidences of actions.
Like a background.
Yes, that are considered inimical to the government.
Okay, I want to allow Olumatins to add to that quickly. Insecurity attacks in the southeast in particular are still not abated from Anambra all the way to Ebonyi, for example, all right? It has not abated. Anambra has election scheduled, governorship election for that matter, for November 6th, which is just a matter of a few months away. The president says, look, whatever happens, ultimately that election goes on. And INEC says it's ready to conduct the election in Anambra and ultimately in the whole of Southeast, depending on how this whole thing pans out. But somebody who had been a commissioner of INEC now says that election in Nigeria in 2023 is going to cost way more than anybody can fathom at this point. Of course, that's a no-brainer, given all of the very nasty developments that we've recorded in the last couple of months in this country. Help us make sense of what is happening in the Southeast right now and how it impacts the entire Nigeria, because it would be myopic of us to think that it's just restricted to the Southeast. This will reverberate across the country today and in the future, unless, of course, we do something drastic about it as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly, lend my voice to the Twitter president imbroglio.
Yeah.
I think it's unfair to say what Nnamdi Kanu said wasn't pulled down. We didn't vote for Nnamdi Kanu.
Exactly.
Nnamdi Kanu does not have the control of state. He doesn't control the police, doesn't control the army, doesn't control what he controls are the minds of certain individuals. And those individuals, his control is even contentious because those guys are under governors and they have political offices. When we're growing up, we tell you that the executive arm of government is the most influential. So when you become a president or a governor, for all intents and purposes, your statements you are reticent by nature.
Right.
Because it is in this country that a governor can walk past you with a bad eye. You stretch your hand to shake him. He didn't shake you. The DSS will bundle you out of that hall. He didn't say anything. The fact that he just didn't look at you well, that is a governor. How much less a president? The powers before the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces is enormous. So his language should be temperate. However, is that if President Goodluck Jonathan has said he will shock us, we will not be shocked the way we are shocked now.
What's the difference?
If Obasanjo says he will shock us, he doesn't need to say he will shock us. I will be shocked. I will get a shock for where I did. The reason is because by the temperament of Obasanjo, I'm told that his son bought a brand new car before he became president. I came to show the man. The man entered the car in the compound and drove it and hit the wall. What happened? So when you were younger, you had an accident in one of my cars. So I'm just so that you will know how
it feels.
So if that man says I will, you can imagine how shocked his son was. So if that kind of man, by his temperament, says I will shock us, I will be shocked. But you can see the disposition of Jonathan. Jonathan says there's nobody's blood that is worth my election. So if he says I will shock, I will be shocked that he's saying that he will shock us. Because naturally he's not that kind of a person. But if President Muhammadu Buhari, who doesn't talk much, whom said before now, as General Muhammadu Buhari, that the blood of dogs and baboons will be there. Even before he says, I don't fear, I'm already shocked. Because by him, his nature, his tendency, his proclivity as General Muhammadu Buhari, going into President Muhammadu Buhari, shows that, quote and unquote, he is a no-nonsense person. And by his temperament, if President Muhammadu Buhari says he will shock us, is a heavy statement. So I won't blame the national community. If you have 20 million people move into Ghana, they will determine who Ghana's president is because of the sheer population of Nigeria. Right. So the international community is careful because there's no West African country that can take the entropy, the outflow, the exodus of illegal immigrants. So I mean, but just for they will not, you know that they will think I'm not intelligent. I will just say I concur totally with all that they are saying. But I'm just speaking my mind so that people know that I also have my own my own intelligence. Now the Southeast people will forever be agitated. If I was a Southeasterner, it's the way the South people will be agitated. I went to Sabama, I came far to be precise. I couldn't put my feet down because the soil was brown. The water was shining because of oil spillage. I saw dead fishes come to the surface, dead. They can't fish there anymore. And then those people, and then they have terrible roads all over there. Then you go to Kano. One day, as we were going to Kano, one of these our Senate NAS movement, we saw street lights. Out of crazy I said, let's follow these street lights. We followed and followed and followed. We went up our normal road. What do we see where it is? It was endless. We had to turn back. So when you see what is happening there, you look at what's their contribution to the national survival. It is very little. Then you come to your own where sin is taken from. And then you are suffering that. So the Southeasterners will forever be agitated. Because in positions, they are sidelines. They have 5 states. Northwest has 7 states. If you calculate 5 by 3, that's 15. If you calculate 7 by 3, that's 21 senators. So if a senator gets 1 million naira to share to his people, the Northwest senators will have 21 million to share to their people. And the Southeastern senators will have 15 million to share to their people. It goes into local government and all that and all that. So the people must feel that somebody thinks that they are less than human beings. And somebody somewhere is thinking that because there was an attempt by a certain Izogu to, so to speak, and highlight certain northerners as history has it. Some people have sat down to say, as far as we are the ones in power, these Eastern guys must suffer. And they are not hiding themselves, about it. All of the operations that have gone into the Northeast, a quarter of those operations have not gone into where insurgents are banned. What the military, the marching order given to the military in the Southeast is infinitesimal compared to the marching order that is being given to where bandits are ravaging and 200 people, 31 people, 13 people, 400 people on a regular basis. These guys who are agitating, all right? People, before now, there were people who felt that it was inhuman to be killing Boko Harams. Those same people now are the ones that quickly, by fear, came up and said, IPOB is a terrorist organization. It is the first time I've seen people are legit, they have a legitimate direction. This is the reason why they're agitating. And then you brand them. So I think that they're not, as long as we're not willing to sit down to listen to, because after World War, I remember, I used to say that after World War there must be Jojo. After World War there must be Jojo. Because how the president describes certain people, Okapo used to at that time that if out of anger, that's Osman Sakuna, out of anger, the landlord of a house sends his son, go and collect my rent from that man, use whatever means possible. The way the guy will break down the door, because his father says so. Yeah. So we must demonstrate that we're ready to accommodate the Igbos, the Southeasterners. We must demonstrate that they are equal shareholders in the Nigerian project. Anything short of that, particularly when you look at what these guys have put into in terms of work, in terms of their business acumen, if we don't accommodate them, there will be agitation, because they are one of the few people who speak one language, the Igbo language. Whether it is from Anambra to Enugu to Imo, it is one language. So they have this thing that binds them together. And their desire to be a nation must be addressed within the confines of true federalism. And I tend to
again, you say true federalism.
Yeah, that is the agitation has been there from Ojukwu to Nwazurike, Raf Nwazurike, to Nnamdi Kanu. It's not dying. So the fact that it is not dying, and it seems to even, did you see the May 30th sit-at-home? It was total compliance. So with those kind of, it is time to sit down with even the Nnamdi Kanu, because that thing will not go. It will keep coming back, and that's why the Igbos are as agitated, because they feel that they are second, or not third-class citizens in a country that they so contribute to develop.
Let's begin it right up now, gentlemen. I'm just going to give a minute each to Ayamekwe and Chris to quickly talk about this. Olu Martins mentioned the sit-at-home order that was given across the East on May 30th. All right. From reports, it was essentially a matter of compliance. We saw pictures of different cities across the East where people didn't come out, shops were not opened, even though the governor of Ebonyi State had threatened that those who failed to open their shops will be sanctioned, their shops will be confiscated by government. Of course, the governor came back to reverse that position, maybe upon advice from within his cabinet and so on and so forth, right? The concern that many persons have expressed in local law is that where you have a couple of states within a region, and you have the IPOB giving a sit-at-home order, and this order is largely carried out, is hardly adhered to, they say it's a shadow government that we have. Isn't that concerning? You
see, the compliance that we saw as a result of that order, is precipitated on multi-dimensional or multifaceted factors.
That's the village man.
That is the truth. And part of which is the general insecurity and existential threat that has been clouded the country, which all of us here have agreed to. And so, for instance, if there is an order now, somebody just wake up in Edo and say, Edo movement, I want compliance. A lot of people are going to comply, regardless of political, partisan political divisions, because there is existential threat in the country. Right. And really, as Olu Martin said, when there is threat at the national, the next thing to do is to fall back to your ethnic nationality. That becomes your home base. So, but let me conclude by completely disagreeing with my very distinguished friend, Chris, when he talked about, the facts, and that he stands with the fact that the IPOB video wasn't taken down by the Twitter organization. I think he perhaps has a misunderstanding of the rules of engagement of these big techs. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they have very clearly stated rules of engagement, and which is that if your statement is antithetical or threatens, terrorism, implies terrorism and all that, it will be taken down. If a president's statement, like the reason given for the ban of Donald Trump, was that he incited, the January 6th uprising in the United States against the Congress, and so that was the reason they took it down. So if a branded quote unquote terrorist organization, posts a video that threatens a government, and the government now use the word shock, and he goes on to give us encyclopedic dimensions of the word shock, which I respectfully, in my village man sense, disagree with. Because for me, anyone that constitutes a threat to an organization that I preside over, or a state or local government that I preside over, or a country that I preside over, I need to shock that person with adequate response.
Let me shock you too by telling you that.
It's okay, you have to shock me.
Let me shock you. All right.
So you have to shock me.
Don't have all the time.
You are threatening my people, then I should be clapping for you.
But Chris, in 1 minute.
Yes.
People will say, look, in the final analysis, this is about 2023.
Yes.
As we conclude now in 1 minute, how do we make sure we stay alive to see 2023 in the first instance in 1 minute?
We have to deal with these issues. We can't run away from them.
Right.
The truth of the matter is that it is dangerous that a man in UK will give a verbal order and you have that level of compliance in the Southeast, it tells you that the pretended leadership of that region are not actually the leaders of the people. They have to face that reality. The man in charge is over there in the UK. So we have to now sit down to say, look, how do we deal with these realities? And that's why I agree with him.
Thank you so much,
yes.
gentlemen. I think that's a very fine place to leave it. Reverend Lou Martins.
I even concur with him.
Even
if I
Christopher Ajikere and everybody. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for coming to share with us. We don't take it for granted. We're taking a quick break, everyone. We're back shortly to conclude here by this Thursday. Stay with me.